All right, so super to be up here, and even more super to in 2012, having been the first institutional investor in this fabulous company. You know, OpenOcean partners, we've built software businesses ourselves, some which have scaled really fast, like MySQL and MariaDB and so on. But looking back, we've learned a lot from Truecaller because it scaled even faster, actually beyond the wild ambitions and expectations we had when we invested. I wrote a little blog post about this in May, June. Tom Vester is my Twitter handle, so you might find it there, and we're going to chat about some of those things here today. But I guess, since I say that you've been growing exceptionally, so give some hard numbers. Where did you get from the couple of million users when we saw you first?
Yeah, I think when you guys joined, we had 2 million users using our app for making the phone experience safer and more efficient. Back then, we were only focusing on creating a better incoming call experience by adding an identity to numbers you didn't have in your contacts. And today we're sort of managing the whole phone experience, everything from calling to messaging and so forth. And I actually, before getting up on stage, I looked at yesterday's numbers. So we grew with 369,000 new users yesterday globally.
Sorry, in a day?
In a day, so 100% organic. We spent $0 on user acquisition. And yeah, I guess we've reached like 270 million users globally, where half of them are from India. So we're mainly focusing on emerging markets, building more trust in the society, basically.
Yeah, which actually is a good bridge to some of the points in that blog post. One was what we've learned, although we kind of knew it already, was that even in a business that's as global as yours and as massive in many markets, you still actually need to focus your efforts on maybe just one main market, which for you has been India. So can you speak a bit to what that means to still focus on one market despite being totally global?
Yeah. So we sort of found the key KPI for Truecaller, which is, in order for us to be successful in a market, we need to have really good data that our users contribute in different ways. And we let every single market grow organically. And when we see that a market reach a certain threshold with good data quality about people or businesses connected to a certain phone number, then we start to put our sort of efforts into those markets. And we've seen such a big opportunity in India, and we think if we can crack India, we can crack any market in the world, basically. So today, for instance, what we offer in India, which we don't offer anywhere else, is an easy way to directly from your contacts in Truecaller send money to someone, which will create even more integrations with over time, so you can send money to someone directly in a conversation. If you're speaking to your hairdresser or the utility payment company or whatever it is. And India it's very interesting because it's growing extremely fast. It feels like every year there's something big happening. Either it's demonetization or 4G being announced, or data plans just drops 10x. So, and that just drives more people to get connected. And I think the latest estimation is 200 million connected smartphone users in India. And then you have another 700 or 800 million feature phone users who are going to get connected over time. So it just keeps growing extremely fast.
So this is one of these rare companies that doesn't need to dominate in the US. I know that's gonna happen as well eventually. Remember back in the days, there was this notion that there are, of course, you can win in the US and you can win big, then you could win in China and you could win big. And now, India as well can be big enough in itself, actually, to drive a big business. How big a business do you think you can build just in India? And yes, you have hundreds of millions of users in other places as well.
No, I mean, only in India, obviously, you can build a multi-billion-dollar business. I think there are a lot of good examples of that. But, back in 2014, or maybe even earlier, if you had growth coming from the emerging markets, that was a bug, because no one wanted to see, especially from an investor point of view. But I think what really was the tipping point was when Facebook and Google officially said, we're going to focus on the next billion. And then all of a sudden, all the companies focusing on those markets became interesting. And we've always said that, Africa will be where India is today in 2 years. And just recently, Sundar, he went to Africa and did a pretty nice blog post about
Google Sundar is what you're saying.
Yeah, Google Sundar. A nice blog post about his journey in Africa. And if you think about it, Africa is like, in total, a population of 1.2, 1.3 billion. You take Nigeria as an example, one of our biggest markets, even though you have 190 million people in the country, but only like 15 million on smartphones. And so it's nothing, but it's going to grow extremely fast.
So I do want to get into some, let's say, even more specific things on how you work with a user base and understand your customers and really grow it. But before that, I mean, the markets you talk about, WhatsApp, for instance, is pretty big in these markets, and they have almost unlimited resources. So how does a Truecaller compete with and be different and better in some ways than a WhatsApp?
Yeah. It's a good question, and we obviously get that question a lot. I think WhatsApp is a fantastic service. We're growing as fast as them in India and some of the African markets. And I think we're solving different problems in communication. And to be honest, I don't think there needs to be one winner. Even today, you have iMessage in the US, you have Facebook Messenger. And if you think about the things I just said about India, you have 200 million connected smartphone users. You have another 600-700 million coming online. There is no clear winner yet. So I think there is an opportunity for a couple of companies.
And what are the things that set you apart? I mean, trust is, of course, a really important word.
Yeah. So because we connect people in a different way, we connect people with people you don't necessarily know, and not people. Because the way WhatsApp is built is you connect with people in your contacts. We think that the contacts belongs to the cloud, which means you can connect with anyone in the world from our service. So I think that's where we're different, and we're focusing a lot on the small businesses as well, because that's how it looks in the emerging markets. There's a lot of small businesses, everything has to happen right now. So the communication sort of culture is very, very different from the Western world. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. Okay.
I think we have a few maybe minutes left here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the maybe earlier days, because I recall learning things like these guys who have had already then millions of users actually go to their users' homes to understand them. And then when it comes to analyzing the data of users, you sometimes came up with things that the data kind of doesn't really show. And so tell me about some of the tricks in really understanding what ticks with the users and how to drive growth through that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be a tourist in your big markets and not move there, because when you're a tourist, you sort of explore the city and the usage, the behaviors in a much different way. So when I go to one of our countries, I just look at things the way a tourist in Sweden looks at statues and such, and you do that naturally. But what I usually do is that I take out a list of 50 people that are actively using Truecaller and 50 people who churned. And I call them, and I ask them, how do you use our service?
You make 100 calls when you go to India?
Per month, yeah. And
Seems like it's still hard work to build $1 billion business.
No, but I always ask the question, what is it that you don't like with our service? Because it doesn't make sense for me to understand what they like. That's mostly you can get from reviews and such. But what you don't get is what people would want you to improve. So we work a lot with those kind of stuff. And I think as a founder, you need to build this culture internally that everyone needs to dive into the data, like really, really bad, every single day. And you need to question data. Because even if the data says you're growing really fast, you need to figure out why are you growing fast. Maybe you're doing something wrong. Maybe you should grow 2 times as fast. Or if something, and this is a tricky one, because if something according to data doesn't take off, it doesn't mean it's not a successful product or feature or launch. And you need to create that culture internally so people don't go like, no, let's kill it because data shows that it's wrong. So every decision we take is based on 50% data-driven and 50% based on user feedback. Is
there any just vision in there as well, not caring about users or data, but actually having a dream that you want to drive as well? Or is it really just those two things?
No, of course we have a vision where we want Truecaller to be in a couple of years. But we also want to make sure that we cover what our users think makes sense or what they're missing. And it kills me to always hear the same stories that you guys should support this in your service, and we don't do that yet because we're focusing on other things. So it's tough.
After we invested, actually twice in the company, the company was fortunate to get Sequoia as an investor, and I know that Alan had the choice of getting Sequoia, I guess California and India, and since the largest market is India, it was a natural choice to find a great investor in that market. And talk a little bit about what it is to have a Sequoia India helping you in your largest market.
Sequoia is obviously well respected, but I think what they've been really, really good at is helping us to find opportunities, find great talent, being at the right places at the right time, but most importantly, being extremely supportive. When things go down, they're not the guys who will be hunting you down and make you feel bad about things. They're good friends in that sense. And what's good with Sequoia India is that they understand emerging markets, and we have. Besides them, we have...
Of course, they're tapped into almost everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, for instance, we have Kleiner Perkins with John Doerr, Atomico with Matthias and Niklas, which are also super great investors. But what we did a couple of years ago was that we decided to have our board meetings in India. So everyone had to fly to India. And then we did different workshops. So one of the things we did was that we went to small local mobile shops, pretended to be like just tourists and asking them, what phone should I buy, which apps should I install, and it was always, you must install Truecaller, WhatsApp, and Share It. Those were the 3 apps. And that's when, our investors from the West started to understand, okay, now I'm starting to get exactly what the consumer needs. And I think you need to do that with your investors because it's hard for them. It's even hard for our employees to understand the emotional impact you have in your markets.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the things that Alan said there, we all, as investors, and lots of investors here, want to do these things, but I think this is a good reminder of what is important. Time for one more comment?
Unfortunately not, because we are already a few minutes over. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.